Current status of our Giovanni system. As I noted before, and as you'll hear about today, we are in a transitional period between the current system, which we call Giovanni 3, and the next generation, which is called Giovanni 4. I'll get into that in the course of the presentation. I want to thank everybody for being here. This is the second time we have done a workshop like this. We have some good presentations, as I talked about a little earlier. So let's go over what Giovanni is currently slated as. Okay. As I said, we're going to talk about the current status of Giovanni 3, and we will, I'll mention briefly Giovanni 4. And following this talk, Chris Linus will go into much greater detail on the development and the status of the Giovanni 4 system. Okay, if you don't know already, I assume many of you probably do, Giovanni is located on the internet. It's a web-based system, and the URL for Giovanni is http://giovanni.gsfc.nasa.gov. If you go to the GSDisc homepage, which is disc.sci.gsfc.nasa.gov, there is a link there. If you go to the regular Giovanni homepage, there's a link to Giovanni 4. But if you felt like typing it in yourself, you can see the URL on this slide, and it's simply the Giovanni URL with the next section, Giovanni, and that will get you to where Giovanni 4 currently resides. Now, this is a fairly short historical overview. When you look back at the history of the system, Giovanni first became available in 2003. It wasn't called Giovanni right off the bat. It was called the MODIS Online Visualization and Analysis System, which was MOVAS for short. And it was also set up as the TRIM Online Visualization Analysis System, or TOVAS for short. And you will still find references in the literature today to TOVAS. If you don't know, TRIM is the Tropical Rainfall Measuring Mission, which is near the end of its mission lifetime, still delivering good data, and in anticipation of the Global Precipitation Measurement Mission that was launched this year. If you look at our history, and we have these online, the first journal publications that used Giovanni appeared in the year 2004. And then we went into a development effort. These years were estimated from looking at emails in my system. I don't know exactly when we started transitioning from the first Giovanni system to Giovanni 3, but it looked like it was in the time frame of 2007 to 2009. And Giovanni 3 is the system that is currently available today at the URL I showed you before. And then we started working on Giovanni 4 about 3 years ago. And it takes a while to do this. It's an ambitious undertaking, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to go through, though I won't read them all off, the different data portals that we have. Giovanni 4 is separate. You'll be able to find all the data in the system in one place. But when you look at what we have in the system right now, you'll see that there is a big, wide variety, even more so when I went through it than I had thought. Okay, so you can see that we have a specialty in aerosols. We have a number of different interactions with both aerostat and maps. We have a new item that you can read news about, the Statistical Explorer for maps. We have data from MISR, which is a sensor on the Terra platform. We have data in aerosols in the atmospheric data, that also includes water vapor clouds and things like that. We have AIRS data that's daily, and we also have AIRS data that is monthly averaged. We have MODIS data from both Terra and Aqua, both daily files and monthly files. We also have data from the ozone measuring instrument that is on Aura, and we have, from Aura as well, we have the microwave limb sounder, and the high-resolution dynamics limb sounder, which is called HRDLS for short. And we have some data from the tropospheric emission spectrometer, and that's TESS. And we have other ozone data, and we even have some historical data going back to the URs era from HALO. And one of the neat little unexpected but useful data products from CWIFS, which was designed to look at the oceans, was the fact that as they did atmospheric correction for ocean color, they also derived some pretty good aerosol data. And so we have data both daily and monthly from the CWIFS Deep Blue algorithm. Now we have built over time applications. We have an air quality application that provided some comparisons to EPA data. We have a application for agriculture, looking a lot at hydrology and precipitation data products. We worked with some programs. The Monsoon Asia Integrated Regional Study, you can see on the slide that there were a number of different portals developed for that. An interesting thing about the yearly portal is it actually has some ground cover data, and some high resolution data is also available from there. And then one of the things that Greg Leptoukh worked on and collaborated with was the Northern Eurasia Earth Science Partnership Initiative, which is called NESP for short, and we still have data products for them. Now note too, if you look at these portals, that some of the data in the portals can be found elsewhere. Some of the data is from MODIS, from AIRS, and things like that. An ongoing project that I've been a co-investigator on is the Data Enhanced Investigations for Climate Change Education, which we call DICE. And we have monthly data and daily data. And DICE was designed to do something that Giovanni 4 does, which was to put data products in one place. And for the education system, we tried to come up with fairly easy to understand and also data sets of interest to students and teachers that can be used to look at potential climate change phenomena, such as snow cover, rainfall, surface temperatures, ocean chlorophyll, things like that. So I invite you to take a look at DICE, see what's in there now. We are going to adapt DICE to Giovanni 4. It's a project that I'm doing right now, showing you teachers that have built lesson plans using DICE as it is now, how you can do it in Giovanni 4 and potentially utilize some of the things that Giovanni 4 has to make your lessons even better. So that's something I'm working with. We also have ocean data. We have regular data from MODIS Aqua, CWIFS, and we have some water quality products, which I'll talk about in my talk on Thursday. And I also like to say we are working with Cecile Rousseau and Watson Gregg with the NASA Ocean Biogeochemical Model daily and monthly products, and we are right in the process of adapting those to be in Giovanni 4. And that will be an excellent supplement for the project that we're working on called Federated Giovanni that is working with other data centers to put data into Giovanni that we don't actually have archived at the GES disk. And one of the partners is the Ocean Biology Processing Group, which produces the ocean color data. And then when you get into meteorology, we have some really good data sets from the Modern Era Retrospective Analysis for Research and Applications, which I won't say again. I'll just call it MERA for short. And you can see that we have quite a few different things from MERA. And MERA is really a good go-to set if you're looking for unusual data sets. You've got winds, temperatures, quite a few atmospheric variables from the top of the atmosphere to the bottom. As I noted before, we have all the data from TRIM, wide variety of products, ground station data, still a very useful place to look for meteorological and especially rainfall data. And then we have some data from Ceres as well. And then finally, we have hydrology portals. I include TRIM, TOVES under that because that's where the hydrology starts. We have data from the Global Land Data Assimilation System, or GLDAS. You can see GLDAS provides monthly data and data every 3 hours at different resolutions. And then we also have data from NLDAS, the North American Land Data Assimilation System. And NLDAS actually has data down to the hourly level. I've used that to look at a couple of derecho events, the very strong wind fronts that have come through, which caused a big power outage here a couple of years ago. And so you can look at that. They have hourly, monthly, and climatology data for NLDAS. And this is a breakdown of the data products that are in TOVES. One of the things that gets really useful when hurricanes, like the backdrop on my slide, are coming through is the real-time data, which we get approximately 6 to 8 hours after it's brought down. I've used that to watch hurricanes as they've moved in various places. Note we still have some really long-term data products that go back to 1950, such as the Wilmot and Matsura data product. And we have some intercomparison products that have been worked on by the staff here at the GS disk. Now, just a brief thing about Giovanni 4. As I noted before, they've been working on it for around 3 years. And so one of the reasons that it takes this amount of time is that it's working with trying to get all the different aspects for making the data sets that you've seen previously working. They're very heterogeneous. There's a lot of differences between them, and they're getting them working. We're adding new data sets. They have their own characteristics. They're going to duplicate all the visualization and analysis functions that Giovanni 3 currently has, and they're adding some really exciting new ones. I just found out an aspect last week that I had not known existed before in terms of doing time series. So there's a lot to discover. There's a lot to use there. As I said, it's a one-stop user interface. It's one page where you select your data products, your time periods, your region of interest, and you do it all in one place. You don't have to go to 5 separate portals to get all the data that you're looking for. And in addition, they're integrating with a lot of the other systems that we have at the GS disk, such as Mirador and the Simple Subset Wizard. And so it's a great undertaking. It's moving along quite well, and you'll see some of that in a few minutes. Now, one of the things that I do here is I keep track of our journal publications. And in fact, all of the speakers here at the workshop were found by virtue of the fact that they had published a paper in the last 2 years that had used Giovanni in some fashion. And so Greg Leptoukh was always fond of watching the growth of the publications, and they are moving along quite well. We're at a clip now. We see anywhere between 15 and 20 research publications per month coming out that use Giovanni. As I note underneath this listing that shows the growth, we had 964 total on June 30th. When I'm done with the workshop, I'm going to add up how many we have now, and I expect that we'll be over 1,000. And that's fairly impressive. We know that data sets get cited a lot, but this is a tool that was originally designed just to say, okay, what do we got here? What can I learn from this data? And then when I really find an interesting question, then I'm going to go get the real data. As you'll find, sometimes it's used that way. And at the same time, some people are able to get really good research results just using Giovanni, or they make a plot that they put in conjunction with the main research that they're doing on a different topic. So we see a broad spectrum, and that's what we want to present here at the workshop. And as I note at the bottom, when I do searches for publications, I frequently find theses and dissertations and reports, meeting presentations, student papers, all sorts of things where Giovanni is used, and that's what we like to see. Here's some articles that have come out recently that were more about Giovanni rather than where Giovanni was actually used. Our own Zhong Liu wrote the paper, Developing Online Visualization Analysis Services for NASA Satellite-Derived Global Precipitation Products During the Big Geospatial Data Era. And it's in a book called Big Data, Techniques and Technologies in Geoinformatics that just came out this year. I am the author of an online publication that we're also turning into a research publication that looked at using it for public health. And I was invited to give a talk summer ago, and that's what this particular presentation came out of. It highlighted some really interesting things that I didn't know we had in the data as well. I've been working with Redina Sobianto, who will be presenting a poster, who is specializing in using remote sensing data for looking at public health issues. A friend of mine, Kevin Ruddick, wrote a paper about looking at ocean color, and this has led to a collaboration where the Ocean Biology Processing Group will probably be bringing over data from the Sentinel-3 satellite that's going to be launching in 2015, new ocean color sensor, and as MODIS ages, we hate to say it, but it's getting older, this is a potential new good ocean color data source. And finally, my colleague Su-Hong Shen wrote a paper in 2013 in conjunction with Greg Leptoukh and Henry Fang, I believe, and looking at NASA satellite data, and it was in a book called Land Surface Observation, Modeling, and Data Assimilation. So just a couple of questions I came up with people might ask. We have a parameter listing page, and when you count up all the data products we've got in there, we get 2,280, which is, I think, fairly impressive. We've been asked what are our most popular portals. I listed the actual titles of them here. 3 of them are from TRIM, 3 different data products from TRIM. You can see the real time is quite popular. Our daily aerosols, the MODIS daily data products, the Ocean 8-day, that's the highest temporal resolution we have, the general ozone measuring instrument, ocean monthly data, both of the ozone products, and the tropical rainfall measuring mission 3-hourly data are the most popular portals we have right now. Okay, and this is my slight surprise. A few months ago, I was approached about using a data image in the book written by Kip Thorne of the California Institute of Technology, and he was the science advisor, and he's also the inspiration for one of the characters in the just-released movie Interstellar. Came out last weekend. And Kip wrote a book called The Science of Interstellar, and I knew it was coming out November 7th, and after I left work on Friday, I went to see if it was there, and it was, and I can confirm that the image that you're looking at right here, which was a controversial iron fertilization experiment, was presented as a way to augment salmon populations, but was probably actually conducted to see if someone can come up with a way to sell carbon credits. This particular image was generated using Giovanni by the Guardian newspaper in the UK and made the rounds in the media. And it ties in with some of the climatic events that are happening on Earth in the movie. I won't tell you anything more. I'll recommend seeing the movie and buying the book. We did this before, but before we want to proceed any further, I want to make a dedication to Greg Leptoukh. You can see his picture here. And we like to say Greg was both the guiding mind and the guiding hand of Giovanni when it first started out until he died on January 12, 2012. Very sudden loss, and we all miss him. He originally was my boss working to support CWIF's data distribution, and then he took over the MODIS data support team when MODIS was launched, and then he was named the science data manager of the GS-DISC in May 2003. He had a wide variety of interests. They fall under the general heading of data informatics. He was very concerned about data quality, ways of looking at different sensors at the same time, intercomparisons, and also working, Giovanni was one of his pride and joys. Some people called him the father of Giovanni. Anyways, that was one of the main things that he was involved with. And because of that, the American Geophysical Union created a lecture. Chris Linus was the first speaker in the lecture, called the Leptoukh Lecture. This is on Earth and Space Science Informatics. And if you search on our website, you can also see more information, and I believe his website is probably still up from the first Gregory G. Leptoukh online Giovanni workshop. So earlier in our opening, I did some acknowledgments. I just want to do a few more here now. I really, again, want to thank Jennifer, who's in the background, making sure that all these presentations come up on time in the right place. She's done a great job with the presenters, and she's really making this workshop run quite well. As I noted before, I want to thank the ESDIS project management, for using Adobe Connect, all of the civil servant management at the GS-DISC, and I want to definitely recognize Chris Linus and Mahab, I'll say it, Mahab Alawashwa Hegde. I'm sorry if I mangled the name, and all of the other people that are working on Giovanni 4 to bring it to us, and the poster authors. And I also want to thank Josh Blumenfeld, who works with Jennifer. He interviewed me and put up with a lot of my asides and stories to write an article about the workshop. And again, I want to thank all of you, all the users that make Giovanni useful and push us to make it better and even more useful for science. That's all I have today. We can, yeah, that's my last slide in this presentation. Chris will be following me up in about 10 minutes. And I guess we can, are there any questions? Can we take questions, Jennifer?
Sure, you can
Okay.
take questions. If anybody has any questions, please type them into the Q&A pod on the right-hand side of your screen.
My Q&A pod is overloaded. I can't see any new stuff.
Click on Presenter View, Jim, you'll see.
No, that thing again.
Yes. You're welcome, Adnan. It's been a pleasure to be part of this the workshop and helping to get it organized. I don't see any questions. Right, here we go. Let's see here. Great. Land surface temperature estimation. Okay, so let's see if I can figure out the question from this comment. I'm assuming the question has to do, the first question, Jim, is whether or not land surface temperature estimation, I'm assuming you're referring this to Giovanni. Are you asking whether or not land surface temperature, MODIS land surface temperature data is available through Giovanni? If the user could please clarify a little bit, that would be...
It sounds like he's stating that that's his research interest, which we find interesting, and we do have, obviously we have MODIS land surface temperature products in Giovanni.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. The next question is Giovanni open source?
Chris will get into that a bit more. Giovanni 3 was not, but Giovanni 4 relies on some open source tools and software, and so I invite you to listen to Chris and see what he says about that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any further questions? Okay, 2 questions. Okay, the first question is regarding MODIS level 3 data.
Yeah, I can read it as well. Yeah.
Okay, so in general, what is the uncertainty of MODIS level 3 aerosol optical depths and cloud fraction data over the land and over the ocean? Let's answer the first question first. And I'll read it for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, that's fine. One of the things, we don't have any particular way of estimating the uncertainty beyond what the science teams do themselves. And so the answer to those questions are available in the science documentation for the products. Okay, we are endeavoring as we build the next system to make it easier to find those types of answers. Okay, but one of the things about Giovanni is that it primarily works on what's called gridded data, and most of the gridded data products do not include data quality statistics that you find with the level 2 data. Sometimes, as I know in the case of the ocean biology groups, they have 2 different types of map data products, one of which contains things like standard deviation and RSS values like that allow you to make those estimations. Some of the data products do not, and they're only found in the level 2, and that's how you have to make that estimate. Okay. If you want to read the second question, Jennifer?
Yes, and the second question is, what is the uncertainty of MODIS level 3 cloud fraction data over the ocean, over the ocean in the presence of high pollution characterized by aerosol optical depths approximately equal to 1?
And I defer, sorry I can't make a direct question. What I'm going to say is that some of the presentations that are coming up both in the posters and in the live presentations address this particular question. And so I invite the guest to listen into those presentations.
And isn't it
I
also...
wish I could have better answers, but we also have scientific experts on the data to whom these questions can be directed here at the DISC.
And so, Jim, would it also be good for me to add the MODAPS URL in here for people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we can...
With respect to documentation, those data products can also be retrieved from our MODAPS Atmosphere Archive and Distribution System, so I'm getting ready to type that in for everybody. They do have a user support. Just bear with me here. Let's see. So that's ladsweb.nascom.nasa.gov, and their user support is, and there are a few more questions here. Let's see. Excuse me for a moment.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, though, is if you have particular questions about Giovanni, I didn't put this in my presentation, but it's a great point to point it out. You can ask the question to our GSF Goddard, let's get it correct, our Goddard Earth Sciences Disk Help Desk. And if the question is asked here, we will do our best to answer it. We have a number of great scientific staff here, or we can go to the data providers and get an answer as well. One point that Chris will point out too, but Giovanni 4 has a feedback button. So if you encounter something of interest, have a question about, you can click feedback and it will be routed to the appropriate people. If it's a question about whether or not the visualization looks good, that can go to the developers, but we can also take some scientific questions too and route them to our scientific staff.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And the next question is, from LST data, how can we calculate soil moisture estimation?
That's a good question. I don't have a particular algorithm in mind, but one thing I would invite is you can do intercomparisons with the land surface temperature data and some of the soil moisture data we currently have in the, excuse me, let me get a drink. In the global land data assimilation system data, GLDAS. That would be how I would, if I was trying to answer the question myself, I would look at those data sets.
Okay, and I should also say for this user that you know, the Q&A log is captured and persistent throughout, so there is an opportunity for Jim to follow up with you offline on your questions.
Right, or you can email me as well.
Several for.
I will point out we have 3 more questions. We have 3 more questions. That's all I'm going to answer, and then we'll get ready for Chris.
Yes.
For the same user, I'll read the next ones to make sure we finish up. He also asked how to estimate evapotranspiration rate using Giovanni data. I'd recommend looking in the MERA data sets and the GLDAS and NLDAS data sets. I believe they have evapotranspiration data product. So I would look in there.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, will it perhaps be possible in the future to do a pixel-by-pixel analysis? For example, doing clustering of pixels based on temporal characteristics using Giovanni.
That's a tough question for me to ask unless it was outlined further. So I invite you to send the question in. Chris may actually be able to talk about that type of analysis. And if it's not, one of the things that we always invite our users to do is describe it to us, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jim. And our next question is, how does Giovanni work with the NASA AIRS data?
Very simply, and you may want more detail on how that happens, but AIRS, the AIRS mission, the AIRS data team produces the AIRS data products. And we are the archive for the AIRS data products. We work with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the data team. So the AIRS data products in particular, we call one of our flagship data sets. They are all archived here at the Goddard disk. So Giovanni accesses that data using its search tools and puts it into, takes the data products that Giovanni uses, puts them into the system, and then applies the analysis tools to them. So I don't know if that's enough answer. If there's more, you can ask for more. But we do work closely with the AIRS data team, and we have a number of AIRS data specialists here that work with the AIRS data team, go to the science team meetings, and can tell you a lot about AIRS data. And with that, I will have to beg off some questions and get ready.